Welcome to the Kratom Sobriety podcast. This is Jacob, and this is a return interview today that I'm doing with Lauren. Lauren appeared originally on an episode which aired on September 7th, 25, beginning of fall, late summer last year. Lauren, how are you doing?
I am doing very well. I'm busy, but I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. And it's nice to talk to you again. I did Laura's original interview. We were chatting before about that, but it's great to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Awesome. So Laura's here essentially because she is celebrating a year sober. If you didn't hear her first episode, she mentioned on that episode that her clean date from Kratom was April 10th of 2025, and we're recording this on Sunday, April 26th, so she's now got over a year clean. Congrats, Laura. How does it feel to have a year off Kratom?
A year and 16 days. I can't believe it. It feels great. I feel very proud of myself for sticking through because, as we all know, it's not easy. It was pretty crazy because when we did record our first episode, it just doesn't seem like that long ago. And then next thing you know, because I think I was at almost 5 months when we talked. And the next thing I know, it's a year. It just flies by once you get to a certain point. So I'm just honestly really glad I stuck through it and I didn't give up. And I just gave myself that time and space to heal and give myself what I needed to just be in the best situation to stay sober and stay away from triggering situations and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Giving yourself that time and space and that ability to just recover in the way that you need to is really important. So, Lauren, for anybody that maybe didn't have a chance to hear your original episode, or maybe some newer listeners we may have that haven't gotten through the back catalog yet, could you summarize your experience with Kratom to remind the guests that might not have heard that episode? Maybe try to keep it to a couple minutes just since that back content is available for anybody that might not have heard it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used Kratom for almost 5 years, really close to coming up on 5 years of use when I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I used primarily powder for the first 3 years. And then around the last 2 years or year and a half, I started mixing in extracts, but it did not take very long for me to realize that my tolerance was just so high that I just wasn't getting any positive benefits from it anymore. And just, I had actually had one quit attempt before this one. It was after my first year of use, and I went cold turkey and it was miserable. And it was just off of powder. And it was still one of the hardest things I've experienced yet to this day. And I relapsed on my wedding at 30 days. And what I once thought was just going to be this is like a one-time thing for my wedding because I don't want to drink. Because, by the way, I am coming up on 5 years sober in December this year from alcohol. But that one time of thinking, I'm just going to do it for my wedding, it just full-blown relapse. And I kept using for 4 years and didn't even really make another attempt to quit. But around December of 2024, that was when I really just felt ready, finally, to quit. There were no positive benefits anymore. I could only think of just all the reasons why Kratom sucked. And I was so sick and tired of revolving my life around my next dose and just having these really underwhelming boosts and crashes and mood swings. And it was affecting my mental health in a major way. I felt anxious all the time. And to make a long story short, just all the things that I thought Kratom was helping me with, it was inevitably just making those things worse. I was feeling less social. I was feeling more anxious. I was feeling less motivated, more complacent. And that's something I really want to talk about is the complacency that Kratom causes, because I did not realize how complacent I was in my career and just in my life in general until the fog lifted. But yeah, I'm, like I said, a year and 16 days off, and I don't think about kratom anymore. It just seems like it's so wild how you can revolve your life around something for almost 5 years and then be a year off and you just look back and you're like, "What was that? Who was that?" It just seems like a blip and just a really weird phase of my life that I'm just very happy to be out of.
Yeah, I hear all that. I made a few notes and as you were talking that I could easily relate to. The feeling like a totally different person, and yeah, it's been 3 years. But yes, the complacency piece, that's a really good topic because you can sometimes feels like your life is on autopilot and not in a good way. You're just there, like you said, you're usually not moving forward towards a goal or doing anything positive. You're just stuck in this loop of existence.
Yeah. This loop of just, when's my next kratom dose, and do I need to go to the smoke shop, and just basically living life at a bare minimum. That's what I was doing and not even realizing it either. It once the fog lifted, I would say around the 5, 6 month mark, honestly. I know that sounds like a long time, but I would say around 5, 6 months was when I really started to feel just so much better. But then I also had this weird sense of panic because I was like, what the hell have I been doing for the past 5 years? I haven't been trying to progress in my corporate job. I haven't been really going the extra mile with anything I've been doing in my life. I just had this crisis, like a career crisis a little bit, because I just felt like I had just wasted 5 years when I could have been progressing in so many different areas, but I was just so content with the bare minimum. And so I started an Etsy shop where I sell digital products, and that quickly became very successful. And I just got pretty hyper fixated on that. You know, how us addicts are. We just tend to get obsessed with things, but it became really successful. I got a promotion at my corporate job. And then on top of that, started my own creative marketing consulting business where I opened an office recently, already taking on new clients. So I'm basically working 9 to 5 and 24/7 at the moment. When before, when I was on Kratom, it was like roll out of bed. I worked remotely. I still do, but just roll out of bed. Sometimes I would get online at 9:30 when I'm supposed to work at 8, stay in my pajamas all day, sit on the couch, do literally exactly just what I needed to do, but not trying to excel in any way possible, and then just close my laptop and just not think about anything else other than vegging out. So I have just really skyrocketed when it comes to my career and my hobbies and turning my hobbies into a career, which is really cool because it doesn't, even though I work so often, it doesn't feel like work, but it's something I could have never done if I was still on Kratom ever. And I thought Kratom gave me confidence, but it totally robbed me of my confidence in my own abilities. And then once I got off of it and gave myself enough time to really just let my brain heal, it was like I felt confident enough to take on all of these things and confident that I'd be able to handle it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot of positive things and a lot of progression in life, getting back into hobbies, turning them into a business. Yeah, you definitely can't do all of that when you're stuck in an addiction. Maybe you can, but it's very difficult.
And
Um,
do it for too long, at least.
yeah, you definitely can't
Not
do it
just
for too long. Definitely not sustainable. So, how did your first year progression go other than what you already mentioned? You mentioned the 6 month mark, you really felt better, but what was like the first couple months like, then the 6 month mark, then the now that you're at a year? How would you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I did something I spoke about this in my previous episode, but I did something really hard for me. On my 30-day mark, I went to a wedding where I saw everyone from college that I hadn't seen in 8 years, and I was just absolutely terrified, not only because of the kratom, but also it's a drinking party event, and I don't know, I was expecting myself to have horrible social anxiety. I considered turning around and not going at all, but I just pushed through because I just wanted to prove to myself I can get through an event without it. At some point, I didn't even really care if I had fun or not. I was just like, I just want to be able to check this box and say I went to a wedding and I didn't drink and I didn't do kratom. But I actually had a really good time, surprisingly enough. And so I would say that within those first few months, I would do things that scared me a little bit. I would try not to push myself too much. I was very open with my friends and family about setting boundaries and things I didn't feel comfortable doing and things I did feel comfortable doing. I listened to myself, but little by little, the more things that I did without kratom, even just little things like running errands and just those things that seem like daunting tasks. When I just kept going and kept going, it was like I continuously proved to myself, okay, I can do life without kratom. And I think around the September mark, so this was around 6 months, I was a bridesmaid in a wedding. And I just remember not thinking about kratom at all, really. Feeling really comfortable within myself and also feeling like it was easier to connect with my friends. And it was a big wake up call for me because I didn't realize how kratom really held me back with being vulnerable with others. It was like I always had this mask on and I always was just positive, happy go lucky Lauren. But true connection and friendship comes from being real with each other. And I felt like I got closer to one of my friends and I felt like I could have more real conversations and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and not worry so much about having to seem perfect and on all the time. And I think that's a trend that I notice when I listen to other kratom addicts tell their stories is a lot of us keep this hidden addiction because we want to just make it seem like everything is perfect with us. I think a lot of us have this performance anxiety where we want to be the best friend, the perfect wife, the perfect husband, the perfect employee. And we think kratom is helping us do that. But there's no such thing as being perfect. It's impossible. It's unattainable. It's neurotic to think that you should be perfect and happy all the time. Through just allowing myself to not be perfect, I found myself having stronger friendships. And friendships were something that I always really struggled with. So that was just a really big positive that I got out of that experience. And still to this day, I find myself pushing myself to be more vulnerable with the people around me.
Yeah, that's pretty common too, from what I've heard from others in the community that have recovered from this substance and other substances too. And yeah, perfection is, I work in the tech industry and I also have a couple side hustles and stuff now that I'm not in. I don't know. I wouldn't call them side hustles because I actually like doing them and I don't necessarily care that much if they make money. But anyway,
I feel that
I
100%.
anyway, I also find that like in tech, there's this saying, perfection is the enemy of good. And I apply that to life sometimes because you're not going to be perfect. Is it good enough? Can you do better? Yeah, you should be striving for that. But this image, and I think social media and other stuff these days makes it even worse because these people have these images, but that's just what they're showing to the public behind it. You don't actually have any idea what's going on with people.
Oh, yeah. I just think about how perfect my Instagram looked when I was really struggling on gas station heroin.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, people had no idea how badly I was actually struggling. It's just crazy.
Yeah, same. I had some of that and then there's the imposter syndrome that goes along with it. That's awesome. Sounds like a really good progression on all fronts. I know we talked a little bit about this in your last interview as well, but what tools and or programs do you do to help maintain your sobriety from both kratom and alcohol?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I did want to talk a little bit about this today just because it's honest and it's a part of my story. In my early days, I was very active in a recovery group. And then I started really diving deeper into therapy. And I actually decided to go the psychiatry route because I had not been properly evaluated by a psychiatrist in a really long time, probably since I was in college. And when you stop taking kratom, you realize the reasons why you started taking it, right? You peel back the layers and, okay, so I was really struggling with anxiety and I was really struggling with overthinking and rumination and focus. And so that's why I self medicated with kratom. And so and I'm sure many of us can relate, we like the idea of harmless natural plants versus big pharma.
Yep.
Forgive me for going down the big pharma route, but I did go see a really great psychiatrist who gave me amazing insight into just my brain chemistry and started taking medication for me that has really helped with my OCD. And I've noticed because I used kratom, I think, as a way to silence rumination and overthinking. It's 1 second you're overthinking, then you take some kratom, and then you're just like a potato on the couch.
Yeah, for sure.
So, this way, being properly evaluated and medicated under a professional, it really did work for me and it helped me a lot. I don't wanna give medical advice to anybody, but because everyone has their own reasoning as to why they turn to kratom. For me, I was definitely self-medicating mental health issues. It was hard. I felt like I had to be a little brave in order to do that. No one really wants to hear exactly what's wrong with you.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was enlightening and it helped me accept myself and understand myself a little bit. That's been new. That's been a new transition in my life where I really haven't done that in a long time. But so far, so good.
Yeah, that I think that's really good advice. The therapy's one thing, and that's really good. But if you are seeing a therapist, and again, I don't want to give medical advice either, but like you said, sometimes taking the next step, seeing a psychiatrist, particularly if you have what you think might be a disorder or other things, I think there's really nothing wrong with that. And for our younger listeners, as you get older, it's pretty inevitable that you're going to end on some sort of pharmaceutical if you want to live a long life. That's just reality. There's no way around it.
Once you turn 30, it's kind of all right. I got to figure out what's wrong with myself now.
Yeah. It only gets worse from there in a good way, I'll say. You're blessed to have a long life if you're lucky enough. But so I would echo what you said. Yeah. There's only so far I think that you can go with plant medicine or whatever, and a lot of it is no good for as we found out the hard way.
I still believe in holistic wellness, though. I got acupuncture yesterday, which is rooted in science, but
Yeah.
I got acupuncture yesterday and it was awesome. So I highly recommend that if anyone is interested and not scared of needles. But it was really cool. And that's
Def-
just another tool, I think, is like I really try to practice self care in any way that I can, whether it's working out, getting massages. My skin has improved so much since getting off kratom too. Holy crap. I just thought I had this chronic acne that started out of nowhere and I realized that kratom was making it so much worse. I've just been taking better care of myself and trying to love myself a little bit more.
yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with all of that. Self-care is key. Sometimes I look at photos from a few years ago and it's kind of like night and day at this point, which is pretty great. All right, so for any of our listeners that might still be struggling with kratom, what advice would you give them?
Oh, so I actually I have a friend who her husband is struggling with getting off kratom right now. And I start with the whole maybe you should try tapering because that's what I did and that helped me keep my head above water throughout the whole process. I know it's a really difficult thing to do for many people, but to try tapering if you can, just to slowly get your brain chemicals stabilized rather than ripping off the Band-Aid. But if that's not possible, that's okay too. There's no right or wrong way to quit. I think you have to do what's best for you. I remember specifically to reading something like when I was in my early days and hearing somebody say, I felt a lot better after 6 months. And I was like, 6 months? That's such a long time. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I have 6 months to be struggling through this. But then you look back and it's a blip and it's so worth it because you get better every day. And you do have to be patient and give yourself that time and space to really prioritize yourself. Doing this is not easy at all. It's like getting onto kratom takes over your life, and then I feel like getting off kratom takes over your life a little bit. It takes a lot of intention, it takes a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it, and all that time that it takes once you're on the other side of it, you're just so happy that you got through it. So to just not get intimidated by the length of the process and just take things one day at a time, as they say. You can get caught up in future tripping, but I hate being so cliche, but it really is just one day at a time, stacking those days, trudging through mud, just telling yourself, I don't care what happens today. I don't care how shitty I feel today. My only goal is to hit the pillow at night and be able to tell myself, I didn't use kratom today, and then do it again the next day. Next thing you'll be at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8, and then you'll be at a year and you'll be like, I don't even think about kratom anymore. It's really crazy how it happens, but seriously, I don't want it. I don't think it's a good idea. Even I was pretty sick not that long ago, and feeling sick was like a big trigger because it's like nothing else is helping and you're just desperately grasping for straws. And this thought crossed my mind of, what if I took kratom this one time? And then that probably took about a millisecond to leave my head and be like, there's just no way. Kratom doesn't actually make me feel better. It blows up my life. So playing the tape forward and just remembering that is super important.
Yeah, that's all really good advice. I rarely think about kratom or alcohol, and usually I know what my triggers are now, and I won't share them because they're different for everybody, but that's what I usually do. I just sit out, and it's pretty, at this point, it's usually quicker it was harder in the earlier days, years. But you play that tape forward a little bit, and within 10, 15 minutes, you're usually back to your rational self saying, yeah, that was a stupid idea. You know what's going to happen there. Yeah, nothing is going to be different. You've done it so many times now, and the outcome is always the same. Even if it's not the same, maybe that one time, the next time it will be the time after that. So there's really no going back. There's only forward.
I constantly think of that, oh, I'm just going to take it one time for my wedding thought, and just how that was so not a one-time thing. And so I just always remind myself of that and know that there's just not that one time. It's not a thing. It's going to spiral. And I just think about all the improvements I've made in my life and how things are looking up. I just don't want to self-sabotage like that anymore.
Yeah, I hear that. I was a couple months ago, was at a event, and someone was asking me about a drink, and I was like, no, I don't drink. And usually when someone wants to go further than that, they're questioning their own drinking or
Yes.
usage. And they were like, oh, you could probably have one. I was like, I could definitely have one, and I'd probably have one tonight, and then tomorrow I'd have two, and then the next night I'd have a whole bottle, and then I'd have a bag of Coke, and then it would just be like this whole train of destruction would ensue. So I know where that goes, and it's nowhere good.
Yes, I can relate to that. For sure.
Anyway, that's a bit off the kratom topic, but we'll get back on it here in a sec. So for listeners that, let's say they've got a few months sober, maybe like you mentioned there, that one time thing still popping in their head, or they're still in that early-ish phase where they've got a few months sober, but they don't feel 100% where they felt they would feel. What encouraging words of wisdom would you share to help get someone that's got a couple weeks or months sober and from kratom and wants to get to that, or is definitely on that trajectory to get to the year, but is maybe at risk of slipping?
Keep being patient because it really only gets better the longer that you go on this journey. On my 100-day mark, I went on a cruise to Italy and Greece, very beautiful places. I didn't feel 100%, but I was in a beautiful place and I felt very grateful to not be on kratom. I wasn't I would say that there was one night where I was feeling like, I wish I felt happier. I feel like I should be really happy right now, and I'm not. My brain chemicals weren't there yet at 100 days. And I remember at 80 days having a lot of emotions purging up and just feeling really emotional about the past and just maybe things I hadn't processed yet because I had been on kratom for so long. And those were definitely difficult moments that made me question myself, that made me think maybe I'm just better off taking kratom and just being fake happy. And it's bullshit. That thought is just bullshit because the longer you go past 100 days or you get to 200 days or 300 days, those thoughts don't come up anymore. At least they didn't for me. Everyone's timeline is different. So it's, if you don't feel this way at a certain time, don't beat yourself up. Everyone's timeline and brain chemistry is so different. But I know for a fact that patience will pay off. And that with every event you go to, every trip you go on, every little thing you do without kratom, it will continue to grow your confidence that you can live life without it.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and it's honest, and it's probably some of the hardest thing for someone sitting on the other end as a listener to hear, because no one wants to hear patience, especially as an addict when you're used to that quick fix. But you're 100% right. There is no quick fix, and if in anything in life, and in addiction and kratom addiction especially, if someone is pitching you a quick fix, whether that's kratom related or fix for your finances or whatever it is, it's most likely bullshit. So, the only way is patience and doing the work and all the things we already talked about with different tools and ways to deal with cravings and your feelings and your thoughts that may be leading you towards thinking about using again.
Yeah. It's hard. I'm a very impatient person in general, I would say. So
Yeah.
to go through this whole process taught me a lot about patience. I'm sitting here saying patience is key, but I learned that through this process. I learned that you can't just take a pill, a magic pill, and feel better and everything in life is perfect. Like you said, it's just bullshit. It doesn't exist. There's always going to be something lurking around the corner, some bad side effect, or it's just, yeah, it's tough. It's a whole process healing from this, but it's inevitably the best thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing about getting through it and learning patience is it not only affects and is all necessary, honestly, for this process of recovery, but also in other things in life. Like in the past 3 years, there's been so many things that have happened that when I was still using kratom, I would have been so intolerant of. I got injured last year, and I would have wanted to rush that recovery process and been really frustrated with the whole thing, but I just kind of took it in stride when when it happened, because one, I can't control it, and two, it is a process, and there's other just daily things in life that, okay, the train's late today, so I'm not going to make it to meet somebody when I said I was going to be there. That would have annoyed me, but now it's just I can't really change it, so I'll get the next one.
Yeah, you learn how to process things and live life on life's terms, not the AA terminology again, but every day that goes on, you learn that. Like okay, I feel like shit. Normally, I would press the easy button and take kratom. I can't do that. That's not an option. So what do I do? And
Yeah.
you learn these tools for yourself, like other healthy coping mechanisms and just ways to process things on your own. And it's just ultimately, you have to look at it as a really great growth experience. Try to reframe it as that. If you're struggling, that's a growth point. That's a place that you can learn something from.
Everybody has trials and tribulations in life, and they may not that may not include addiction, but yours may also not include other trials and tribulations that other people go through. So yeah, you just have to learn how to deal with that and do it in a healthy way.
I sound like a fortune cookie right now, but
Yeah, we both do, but it's the things are the more I find the cliche things are usually cliche for a reason.
yes, that is true.
Which is probably a cliche in of itself. But anyway, so you've already done a lot of really, I would say, inspiring things in your first year of being kratom free. I counted you started 2 businesses, you got a promotion, you did some travel, all kinds of stuff. As you look ahead to year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 in your kratom free journey, what are you most hopeful and or excited for?
Oh, we're only going up from here, baby. I am really excited and nervous about this new business, this creative marketing consulting business. I literally just opened my office in April, but I'm hoping that I just continue to grow that. Maybe I can eventually quit my corporate job and just focus on what I love doing full time, which is photography, graphic design, social media management, things like that, where it's work. When you work for yourself, when you have your own business, there's really I've learned you're constantly thinking about it. There's no clocking in and clocking out. But regardless, it's something I feel super passionate about. So I'm just looking forward to growing my business, perfecting my craft, and just feeling more confident that I can show up for myself and actually perform and not feel like I need this crutch in order to do it. That oh god, I hated the fact that I felt like everywhere I go I have to bring this loose bag of green powder or I won't be able to function. Now that I don't have that just dragging me down, I just feel like the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, that's awesome. And they are pretty endless. And as long as you don't have that weighing you down for sure. So, yeah, that's great. I really hope your business does get to where you want it to be and you can make it your full time thing.
Like I said, I'm working 9 to 5 and 24/7 right now, so your girl is tired, but
I bet.
but I can handle it, and that's pretty cool. So that's something that everyone can look forward to is once you get over that hump, once the fog lifts, that fog of complacency, you'll realize what you have to do next. You'll be like, all right, what's next on my list? What new thing can I create? What new thing can not perfect, but like a craft or a hobby or something that you want to do and you have the actual time and energy for exploring new interests. You don't really at least for me, like, I lost interest in a lot of those things when I was on kratom.
Yeah, same. I definitely neglected a lot of hobbies and other things when I was on Kratom because I didn't really care all that much about doing it. All right. Is there anything that you still struggle with if you're comfortable with sharing? And assuming so, how do you deal with those struggles without kratom or other substances?
Because I started a new business, I feel like sometimes I still do struggle with imposter syndrome. That's something that I've heard entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs do struggle with. I deal with overwhelm. I deal with feeling like I have a lot on my plate and I just want to turn my brain off. But I've found other ways to cope. And sometimes that's cozy gaming. Sometimes that's I like to bedazzle things and just get my mind off of things, not stare at screens. I feel like all day I'm staring at 2 screens simultaneously, 3 screens actually. So
Yeah.
just giving myself time to just kind of disconnect, it can be hard, especially if you're somebody that you feel like your mind is just constantly going. But yeah, I struggle with normal real life problems, but I have more confidence that I'm able to get through it without using. So, also because I'm almost 5 years sober from alcohol, this is my first year being sober from everything
Yeah.
in a really long time. So, I'm pretty proud of that. But just because you're sober doesn't mean that normal life problems don't pop up. We just deal with them in different ways, healthier ways, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Life is still going to come at you, but you're right. You're dealing with it in a more healthy way, and you don't have that stuff hanging over your back. All right, cool. You did mention you got back into hobbies, and obviously you've got your Etsy store, and you're taking some of your hobbies and turning them into a business. Any other hobbies, or also any relationships you may have rekindled now that you're off of kratom?
Yes, it's funny that you asked that. I think I covered all the hobbies, but well, actually, I really love hosting and event planning. And I had a Galentine's party where I was sober, which is crazy, and hosted all these girls. And two of my childhood best friends actually came. I live in Florida, so they came from Georgia and North Carolina to come. And I was just like, yeah, just come. I haven't seen you in years, but you should just come. And I didn't realize that if I was on kratom, I thought kratom was helping with my social anxiety, but I wouldn't have done something like that. I have rekindled friendships and made the friendships that I have stronger and more real. And one of my childhood best friends from second grade is we've just become so close. She's sober too. She's born a day before me, and I swear we live the same life in different fonts.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but yeah, it's weird. We go through a lot of similar things at the similar times. And I don't know. It was interesting. It was like we rekindled that friendship not too long after I quit Kratom. And kratom just helped, or not being on kratom, I should say, just helped me be more real and authentic with other people. So it's been great. That's something I struggled with so much throughout my whole life is being able to have authentic friendships without feeling like I have to be somebody, be the party girl or be happy all the time or be fun all the time. It's been nice to feel like I can have real friendships where I can share what I'm actually going through and know that I'm still worthy of love. More
Yeah.
for more fortune cookie type stuff, but I'm saying it's true.
No, I think that's more common than a lot of people think nowadays. There's a lot of, especially in the modern world, with everybody having so much going on and just trying to survive. I think people can tend to have some inauthentic tendencies, and I've definitely honestly dropped some friends that I thought were inauthentic because I didn't feel like it was. And when I was using kratom or drinking, I would never do that because I was trying to people please everybody. But now that I'm recognizing that as a thing that I can tend to do, I've built stronger relationships with friends and family that I feel like are truly good friends that are interested in that type of mutual relationship. And when I feel like someone isn't authentic or is wanting me to put on an act or something, like I'm not really interested in that.
That's the great thing about being sober is that you find out what you actually like, and
Yeah, for sure.
you find out who you actually like. And there's definitely, like, on the other side, like, there's definitely people that I realized that I only liked hanging around them when I was on kratom. Because I went to a Halloween party with this group of people, and I was not on kratom, and I was like, "I am having a miserable time. I don't actually like these people." And that's a hard realization.
Yeah, it is a hard realization.
Feel like an asshole, but ultimately, it's a good realization to realize who's really for you and who's not. Because similar to drinking, it's like you can drink and just become friends with anybody. I could take kratom and yap anybody's ear off. But then when I wasn't on it, I was like, these people are boring and I don't feel like we actually connect. And so it makes room for better people to come into your life.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with a few people, both drinking and with kratom, and I was just like, yeah, we don't really have that much in common, and time's limited, so you might as well
Mhm.
spend it with people that you want to,
Yeah.
versus relationships just because you may have run into people in the past when you were using together, and that was what sort of held the relationship together, or because you were numbed out, you didn't really care, and we're like, they'll just exist, and whoever's here is here.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is I was in St. Petersburg visiting my brother and we had a blast. We were doing karaoke at these dive bars and we were just having a laugh and we walked into this CBD hemp shop, which I was not partaking in any of those things, but I can't speak for my brother and my husband. But anyways, there was
Sure.
this girl there and she was yapping my ear off. She seemed almost manic.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her, and then I found out that she owns a kratom bar. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. And it's funny because when we're on kratom, we think no one thinks we're on it. But
Yeah.
it was very obvious to me that she was on something and she was on kratom. And it definitely was apparent. And while we're on kratom, we're just totally just naive to the fact that we're probably acting weird too.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those substances where maybe you can mask it if you're taking a little bit of powder here and there, but yeah, if you're on it 24/7, I think your personality changes a little bit. I had an experience at a recovery meeting not too long ago where I was talking to someone and I was like, something doesn't seem right here. And they didn't seem like they were drunk or high on something else. And I was talking to someone after and they were like, "Oh yeah, he's been really struggling with kratom and 7-OH." And I was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
I think he was high tonight, but it's good that he's here. If it's people, it takes everybody what it takes. So I think if you keep going to meetings and stuff, if that's your thing, even if you're using, I'd rather see you show up than not because eventually it'll click, I hope."
Yeah, absolutely. Come
Anyway,
as you are.
yeah. Sure. All right, a few maybe lighthearted questions and then we can wrap up. So, have you seen any movies or shows lately that you would recommend to the audience?
Well, I'm the type that loves to rewatch the same shows over and over.
Okay.
But so I'm like, gosh, I don't even remember the last time I went to the movies. I really wanna see Bus Boys with Theo Vaughn because I love him, but I haven't seen it yet. But I recently rewatched Love on Netflix. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think so.
It's really good, and the main character is struggling with addiction, so there's lots of themes of addiction and recovery, and it's super, super relatable to me and just a really good show in general. Also, I recently rewatched Girls on HBO, which also has lots of one of the couple of the main characters struggle with addiction. The main character has OCD. It's just so relatable and so funny, mainly because it also was filmed in 2010s and
Yeah,
it captures that millennial vibe so well. Uh and I just find it really relatable. Highly recommend those shows to anyone, especially people that struggle with addiction because they have a lot of really good little tidbits that touch on that in those series.
that's great. Yeah, I've seen Girls before. I've
Best show
watched the
ever
whole
created,
thing.
in
Yeah,
my opinion.
it's a very good show for sure. If you haven't seen that, you should definitely check it out. All right. I just want to thank you again, Laura, or Lauren, again for coming on. It's been really great to have you back and to hear about your journey to 1 year and 16 days now. Before we do wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience or any questions you maybe want to ask me?
Something that I didn't really mention last time, I mentioned that I tapered and that I was, like, dropping down a gram every week and things like that, but I don't think I mentioned how religiously I was tracking everything. And I think that's really important if you're tapering to not just do it willy-nilly, but to be religiously tracking everything on your phone, or if you like to write things down, have a plan. And if you want a plan, I want to be a resource for that too. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, they definitely can.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're interested in taking Laura up, or Lauren, I don't know why I called you Laura twice now in the last minute, but sorry about that.
You're
If you're
not
in,
the only one.
I know it can be annoying. So if you want to take Lauren up on her offer to assist with a taper schedule or something like that, let us know. We have her contact information and we're happy to put you in touch with her. The one time I did successfully taper before one of my many relapses, I did create a spreadsheet. I did find that helpful. So I would definitely second what you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Lauren, thank you so much again for coming on, and congrats again for your year of sobriety. I think that's amazing. And I'm sure the guests or the listeners are going to really enjoy hearing from you again. Any final thoughts before we go?
I'm just thinking about how when I first found this podcast, I was dying to hear stories of people who had made it to a year or 2 years or 3 years. And I feel really blessed to be in a situation where I can give back and hopefully give some hope to some people that it is possible. So there is a way out, guys. I promise.
Yeah, there definitely is. And we've
But
had,
the only way out is through.
yeah, yeah, there's only one way to get past all this, and that is to get off kratom in whichever method you choose, and then maintain long-term sobriety from it. But once you do, you can be in Lauren's shoes and be looking back on 1 year, wondering where the time went, and looking
Yeah.
forward to a lot of other successful things in life.
1 year can erase 5 years of doing nothing. I'm telling you. I'm like, I cannot believe what I've accomplished in the past year. So don't let that fear hold you back. I've already wasted so much time. Once you get off this crap and the fog lifts, you'll skyrocket. So you have something to look forward to.
Definitely. That is a great place to leave it. 1 year can erase 5 years. I think that's really inspirational. Thanks again, Laura, and keep in touch. Let us know how your journey goes, and have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.